Hello, everybody. I'm Vittorio Banfi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Botsociety, and today I'm going to talk about conversation design patterns. So very briefly about me, I'm Italian. I co-founded Botsociety, and before doing this, I was building agents for the biggest companies in Italy. And a little bit about Botsociety. It's a conversation design tool. You can design chat and voice experiences. You can streamline your workflow. It's really cool. We're launching the new version that you're seeing here very soon, so stay tuned. Anyway, today's talk is about conversation design patterns, and which is a very broad topic. So I wanted to talk mainly about three things. So the first one is, what is the difference between engineering patterns and design patterns? The second one is, I'm going to articulate three different design patterns that you can use in your day-to-day design experience and work. And the third one is how to put those theory concepts into practice. So let's go about the difference between how developers think about a conversational interface and how designers think about it. So Nandini Stocker, which is one of the pioneers of our industry, I would say, put it to me, I think, in the best way, which is the engineers think about conversation design in the right way, about conversations in general in the right way, just upside down. And I think that's a great way to put it. Let me explain a little bit what I mean with it. So that's how a developer and engineer will think about the conversational interface. So on the left-hand side, you have the user input, right? And so that's always going to be there. And so it's basically the user saying something, and then this user input will go into the natural language processing engine, for example, Rasa, right? And that it's going to translate, okay, the user actually is expressing this intent, and that's going to trigger the message from the bot. Now, this is the correct, of course, way of looking at this, but that's not the way that it helps you design stuff. It does not help you in the conversation design process. So the way that you look at it when you're designing the conversation is different. So the way that you're looking at it is, you see a message from the bot, which is usually setting up the context and tone. At that point, the user will figure out if the intent that the user already had can be satisfied by the bot, and it's going to express it somehow. And then the bot is going to recognize that, and it's going to get back and hopefully satisfy the intent. So it's a different way of looking at the same thing. And so this different point of view is the reason why we built Botsociety. So with Botsociety, you can organize your conversational interface in paths, which are the interaction patterns that you see, and those may or may not coincide with the technical intents. And you want to keep them decoupled so that in the same way that, for example, every screen on Sketch is not exactly a technical screen inside your mobile app, for example. So this is the main difference. I'm happy to talk more about this if you have questions during the Q&A, but this is the gist. So you will have a different point of view on the same interaction, and that's good. You need to keep it. So let's move on. This was the first point. Let's move on to articulating three examples of conversation design patterns. So I'm going to talk about three. You see I like the number three. I'm going to talk about three points here: that what's a dedicated repair path and how to design it, what's a multi-level repair path and how to design it, and what's a slot filling path and how to design it. So I'm going to use the word path a lot, as you see here. And the reason is that path is clearly a design concept, and it does not have to be, as I was saying before, the same as the intent structure on your bot. So it's going to get clearer with some examples. So before we move on to thinking about dedicated repair path, let's establish what a repair path is. So a repair path is something that you design to make it so that your bot has something to say back to the user when they don't understand each other, right? And so you're trying, from a design point of view, you're trying to repair back the conversation to some point. And so you usually have to design at least, I'm sure the engineers in your team told you that you need to design at least one of them that, the bot will use when there's no result from the intent recognition engine, right? So if the user says something the bot doesn't understand, the bot gets back with the same phrase. This is a general repair path. So what's a dedicated repair path? Well, a dedicated repair path, it's something more like this. All the examples that I'm going to show you have been designed with Botsociety 2, which is our new product. It's the upcoming product. So in this example here, I'm designing a dedicated repair path. So you see on the left-hand side, there's a purchase pizza bot example. On the left-hand side, you see that here, you have the API path. So the API path is the best interaction possible between the user and the bot. And then on the right-hand side, you have my dedicated repair path. Now, the idea is for each critical interaction or question in your design, you want to design a dedicated repair path that does not only say to the user, well, I didn't understand you, it is specifically designed for that step in the process so that you can repair it more successfully. In other words, like you want to make sure that the largest amount of users get at the end of your path here. And so of your API path. And so the best way to do that is on the critical steps, you design a dedicated repair path that does not generically say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you, for example, but it's driving down and explaining to the user what the user can say in order to bring the conversation onwards. And this is particularly powerful because on one side, it allows you to, as I was saying, get more people back on track. But more interestingly, this is a very important moment in the brand experience that you're conveying. So when your bot fails, that's when you want to show the personality and that you care. And this is the best way. So it doesn't matter how good is the copy of your general repair path. It's going to be frustrating because it's the generic random thing that does not seem connected with what the user was expressing beforehand. And so that's a very unnatural conversation, right? Like if me and you were having a conversation and at some point you don't understand what I'm saying, you would try to reference somehow the context of our conversation to get it back to the point where you're able to understand me. And this is also true for artificial conversations. So we should respect that. So designing repair paths, it's very important. It's not very time consuming with Botsociety 2. And if you do it right and you structure it right, then your engineering team can pick it up and just leverage that on the technology, for example, Rasa, that you're using down the road. So this is a dedicated repair path. So the higher rate is going to be astonishing, and you will see, like, you don't need to design this for every step of the way necessarily, but there are some points in your conversation which will be more difficult for your users to get through. So in this example here, understanding the address, it's a critical point in the buying pizza process. Okay, so those were dedicated repair paths. Let's see multi-level repair paths. So what happens during your repair path if you're not able to repair it? And so the idea is, okay, you want to design the repair path of the repair path. And then the follow-up question is, of course, like, how much do you want to repair? Because you cannot go infinite, right? And so the good thing, the best practice here is you have 3 shots, you have 3 strikes. So in this example, I have my API path on the left-hand side, and then here I have my repair path. So it's the same as the first 2 messages are the same as before. And then I connected it back, and that's modeling the scenario where the user actually gets it right. But if the user gets it wrong again here, then I have a different message from the bot, and that's my second level repair path. So what happens if the repair path fails? We have that. And then if it fails again, and you see this connecting back or it's going on, and then the bot is proposing an escalation to a human for the third strike. And then the user is can say yes and proceed here, can say no, and I didn't take the screenshot of that. So this is the idea. Let me explain a little bit more why this is interesting. So the reason is you want to measure how hard is every question, right? So once you release it, if you have this 3-level strikes path designed, then you can tell how difficult is that step based on like how many times and how many users end up, for example, with 2 or 3 strikes. And so you can work on that. So you have a quantitative feedback. So this is one of the reasons why you want this. The second reason is, of course, this creates higher trust between you and the user. And so even when the bot keeps failing, the bot is acknowledging that there's a difficulty in the conversation. And this acknowledgement per se will get the trust between the user and the bot to another spot, compared to a bot that keeps saying the same thing over and over and do not understand each other. In the same way, as I was mentioning before, if me and you don't understand each other during a conversation, if the only thing that I'm trying to do to get the conversation back to a point where it's useful for you, if I just keep repeating the same thing, that's actually a very aggressive behavior if you think about it in a natural conversation. And so this aggressiveness, this untrustworthiness of the conversation that would happen in a natural environment, it's going to repeat itself, and it's going to feel the same way in an artificial conversation. So you want to avoid that. So building trust is one of the objectives that you should have when you're designing repair paths. Multi-level repair paths allows you to keep building trust. And as you see here, your design is skyrocketing in complexity because in this case, I designed dedicated repair paths on multiple levels. So that's why it's difficult to come up with a design either in the building phase, so like building it straight up, because you want to have the freedom and the speed of just not thinking about the API calls that need to do this. You don't want to think about, am I dividing blocks right? Because then this is a functional meaning and all that kind of stuff. As I, thinking back to the first idea that we brought on, those divisions in paths that you have here in Botsociety 2 do not translate directly necessarily into intents. So you can organize them in the best way possible. You can scale your design to hundreds of paths. Okay, so this was the multi-level repair path pattern. Let's take a look at the last one, the slot filling path. So maybe you've heard a little bit more about this, but this is worth mentioning because this is another important tool that you have in your design arsenal. So slot filling paths are interesting when you need multiple data points from your user to fulfill an intent. So the classic example is where would you like to go and when would you like to leave if there's, say, a booking interaction, right? So it doesn't really matter if the user tells you all this stuff in one go, or if you need to keep asking questions or the order of the questions. You need all of this data to bring the user to the next step in the conversation. For example, proposing booking options. So this is the scenario that you needed. It's important to point out that you can do, you can create this type of interactions with Rasa, for example. It's very powerful. You can do that. But it's also a way of designing the interaction that will bring you there, right? So just knowing that you can leverage this pattern will allow you to simplify the interaction for your users. So let me take an example to explain what I mean. So you see, this is another example of an interaction. I'm trying to get John, I'm the bot, and I'm trying to get John to allow John to book an RV holiday trip. And so I'm asking John, where would you like to go and when would you like to leave? Now, John can get back to me saying that valley, and then at that point I need to design the follow-up question for that, or he can tell me everything in one go, and that will work as well. So you see, to visualize this, I came up with my slot filling path, which is the longer path, and then I also create a shortcut example here. I could have, so the reason why I design it this way is because I expect the majority of the conversations to happen actually in this primarily way, where the user asks two questions, sends two messages, but I actually would like to see also the user just straight up telling me all the information at once. So a couple of considerations here. The first one is you will need to design the first question, so the question that leads to the slot filling experience, carefully. You need to design all questions carefully, but this one in particular, because you want to nudge to the idea that, okay, you can tell me anything and all the information that I need, like you would do to a store clerk, right? You would not like drip off one information after the other. You're just telling me straight up all the things that you want. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that you want also to give the impression that you can just answer with one. You don't want to be too strict there. So it's a balance. And again, like taking as examples real life conversations where this type of interaction happens may be very useful. The other consideration that I want to make here is that sometimes you will be asked to take a look at the metrics that this design expressed. And one of them may be engagement, and one of them may be engagement time. But if you're using the slot filling design pattern a lot, you're actually looking for it to minimize the engagement time from 0 to getting to the point where they want. And in other occasions, you may want to maximize the engagement time. So that's something else that you need to take into consideration when you're designing this kind of patterns. Look out for, okay, what I'm maximizing for, depending on the objective, not only in the design phase, but also when you will be evaluating the design down the road once the bud is live. So those were the three examples of conversation design patterns that I wanted to bring. There are, of course, more conversation design patterns that you can use, but I think these basic three are very interesting, and they allow you, if you mix and match them, to create huge, complex, compelling designs that can translate into very powerful conversational experiences. For example, you can, in the previous example, I was already matching the dedicated path idea with a multiple level repair path idea, and you can go on and do that. And you will see that even a apparently simple interaction requires more design than what you would think when you're experiencing it to be good, to be a good interaction. Okay, so let's move on to the last step, which is actually the shortest one, how to put this stuff into practice. So if you want to try this design patterns on end, the best way is to grab a design solution that is general enough that allows you to design for any type of interface, in the same way that you learned how to use Sketch once, and then you could design for desktop, mobile, and any type of interface. So that's what you need. And then the second thing that you need is a solution that allows your engineering team to pick the best building solution, like Rasa, down the road, depending on the project and their needs. And you don't want to relearn each time a new interface, a new tool, each time your engineering team picks a new technology or that you change company or stuff like that. You want to get very good at using one tool in the same way that you got very good at using Sketch or Photoshop. And so that's why we built Botsociety. We're launching the new version. We're calling it Botsociety 2. We've been working on it 10 months. This is the team behind Botsociety 2. We're going to launch soon. If you're interested, let us know. We have the booth, and we'll get you on the wait list. We'll activate you, and you'll be able to take a sneak peek before the general public, which will be next month. Yeah, thank you very much.